All right, so Cafe Racer podcast here. We have just me, no Steve, because he's a bum, but we have a special guest, Tom from Purpose Built Moto. How's it going?
G'day, Crash. I'm good, thanks, mate.
Good. So we were commenting just before the show that like this is your third time on, and you've never you, like still no Steve due to scheduling or whatever conflicts. It's
Yeah, man. He avoids me worse than my ex-girlfriend does. What the hell?
yeah, and I mean, and like you guys don't even have a history together, so like he doesn't have all this years of resentment built up against you like your ex girlfriend does. I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, maybe he does, but I just don't know about it.
Maybe he's been like stalking you on the internet for years, and
He's
he's like,
probably
"Fuck
that
that
fucking
guy."
guy. He's probably that guy that was like my first YouTube troll.
Yeah, maybe.
Steve.
Yeah, this fictitious Steve of which you have heard but never seen.
Well, at least I have you, babe.
Yay! And you have way more hair than the last time you were on the show. You were you had a very bald pate the last time. Now you are coiffed magnificently.
Yeah, it was a total PR move. I grew the hair so I could relate to a wider audience.
Okay. So you a few weeks ago, maybe it was a week ago, I don't know. Recently, no, it definitely was a few weeks ago. My concept of time is abysmal, by the way. Just I never know what day it is. I don't know how long it's been since anything happened. Um, but you sent me a link to a video that you and some friends made called Handcrafted. Do you want to tell me about that?
Yeah, of course. Handcrafted was a project that we went out and filmed over the Christmas, like New Year period of 2018, where we took a road trip down the east coast of Australia and dropped in on a bunch of guys that I'd known and kind of dealt with through my bike business. We went, interviewed them about the bikes that they build, the kind of things that they're interested in. And then a lot of them, we got out for a ride with them in their local area and stuff too, and made a film about the trip.
Yeah, I got a chance to watch it. So you guys went to, I know you guys went to Deus, and then I can't remember some of the other ones that I wasn't really familiar with.
Yeah, so that was the whole kind of point. A lot of the guys that are building more of the like top end of custom bikes in Australia, not many people know about. Um, Australians are very different when they do things like that because they don't tend to like self promote. It's not much of a thing. So I know that Americans are all about it. You know, they're
Oh
out
yeah, I
there.
mean we'll promote shit that we aren't even doing. Like
Yeah.
I mean, Fire Festival, perfect example. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, we went into these kind of these friends of mine's garage and saw the bikes that they were building and talked to them about why they got started and what kind of where their passion grew from and all that kind of stuff. It ended up being like a really educational trip for me as well to get these guys talking about that kind of thing so I could get to know them a little bit deeper.
yeah.
But there's a lot of insight as well. You know, we had a mix of really young guys and then guys that have been, you know, in it for 40 or 50 years as well. And then, you know, some people that no one had ever heard of. And then people like Jeremy Tagan, who works and runs the Sydney Deus workshop.
Right. Yeah.
Everyone kind of knows about, you know, so it was a good mix of people and a really interesting kind of trip and film.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching it a lot. The there was one guy that kind of stands out in my mind. I don't remember his name, but I know you'll know who I'm talking about. He's like the bigger, older guy that like races.
Dude, everyone loves that guy. I love that guy. Yeah, Scotty.
Yeah,
Scott Gillow.
his personality is just so good, and like
Yeah, man.
yeah,
He's
it's
the
worth
best.
watching the video just for him.
A lot of people that will contact us about the film. Everyone has great feedback and stuff, but most people will mention Scotty just because he's such like and for you guys as well, he's like the quintessential Aussie character. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, because so many other people in your film are, um, I'm trying to think of how to put this, somewhat, like, I mean, like thinner white guys that are, uh, kind of trendier looking, and then here's this like big, like, I guess like he comes off as like our version of a redneck, which I guess we were just talking as what you guys would call a bogan.
Yeah,
And I don't know if he's that way, but that's the kind of the immediate vibe that I got from seeing him, was like just like this southern backwoods, like, I'm going to send this bike up the holler and it's going to run real fast, kind of guy.
yeah. Scotty's the best, man. He's very salt of the earth kind of people, and that's why we really loved him. He was initially we had a bunch of people, but very little time. And we ended up having like a half a day spare. And I called Scott. We were coming past where his area is. I'd known him for a few years.
Mhm.
So I called him on a whim and I said, "Hey mate, do you have a couple of hours spare? Get a bunch of your mates together. We want to go for a ride and come and interview you." And by chance, he was at home hanging out in his shed. So, you know, at the drop of a hat, we were in his shed. We went for a ride and had that interview. And I think it was probably one of the better ones that we had in the film, mostly because of his like really rich racing history.
Mhm.
And you kind of throw that in the mix with his kind of devil may care attitude. He doesn't really, doesn't take himself too seriously at all, which is great. And those two things in a melting pot on top of Scotty's personality was a hilarious interview.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite interviews in the film. Were there any other uh like behind the scenes stories that kind of like stand out as being, noteworthy?
Oh, that whole trip was like the two guys that I went with, Jake and Cameron. The whole thing started because they were starting this film production company, and they came to see me because I was local, and they wanted to make a short film about purpose-built moto. So we did that, but I kind of mentioned to these guys that I knew a bunch of other guys just like me that were probably more interesting to talk to.
Right.
So we kind of hatched this plan to go on the trip, but they had zero money, and we did the whole trip on a shoestring. So the whole time we were like sleeping on couches, camping out in the car. It was like uh, you wouldn't tell it by looking at the film, but it was done on maybe like $500.
Yeah, it doesn't look like that way at all. What kind of cameras were you guys using?
It was all blood and sweat. You can't ask me questions about technical things like that. That'd be like asking the filmmakers what bikes we filmed. Wrong person to talk to. I don't know what camera we're filming.
But it
That's
wasn't like, it wasn't filmed on an iPhone.
no, not quite. They had a good camera, but
Yeah.
yeah, like zero budget put into the film, and so yeah, we spent time just sleeping on friends' couches and stuff like that I'd known all over the place. But and even some of the guys we interviewed, we just like crashed at their house for the night and then left in the morning or whatever. But yeah, during Scotty's interview, you'll see it. There's a scene where a bunch of bikes fly past this car that we were filming out of,
Mhm.
and they'd kind of just done that without warning, and there was cars coming the other way. So one of the guys got very, very close to dying during that part of the filming, and every time I watch it, it just kind of flashes because I was driving the car. I just remember this guy coming past and the car slamming on the brakes and like beeping the horn. It was one of those horror moments where if it could have gone any other way, it would have been so bad.
Yeah. I got there during some of your shots, I definitely like I almost messaged you while I was watching it and like called you the toe cutter. Um, just because are are you familiar with Mad Max? Are you a Mad Max fan?
Yeah.
The toe cutter's the leader of the biker gang in the first one.
Oh, right.
And like I just like there was like watching you guys all like kind of ride together and some, because a lot of the bikes you're on are all like, vintage bikes that have been heavily modified, not in like a Mad Max kind of way, but they still kind of had this sort of uh you know do it yourself feel for some of them.
Yeah.
I don't know. It kind of gave me this like, partially because I know you're like that. You guys are in Australia. Mad Max happens in Australia. Kind of like, you know, all coming together.
Yeah, Mad Max is a really interesting documentary about Australia. You guys should come down and see it for yourself. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Still like that today, actually. That's why they made the new one just recently.
yeah. That's just driving across the outback. Yeah,
Yeah, pretty much.
it's just that's just a regular road trip.
Yeah, just get a bunch of the boys together and wear some pitchforks as masks and have a good time.
Yeah, witness me. So, I put out to our some of our supporters on our Slack to ask if they had any questions for you, and it's not quite as appropriate now, but in the movie, you have this like just magnificent full beard. I mean, you have a beard now, but it's quite a bit shorter. And one of our
Yeah,
listeners, Wes, he
you can call it weak.
he has a very big beard himself, and he was asking if you have any beard maintenance and grooming tips, which feel free to,
I don't know if I want to give away all my secrets, but
that's fair. That's fair.
I have a good barber. That's about it. I'm lucky in that the guy who takes care of what's going on here is a good friend of mine. So I go hang out and have a beer with him once a month.
Nice.
Takes care of me. Support your local barber, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. So
But during the filming of Handcrafted, because it was mostly filmed in about 2 weeks, but there are a lot
Mhm.
of stuff that we had to like delay and was almost shot over like 8 months. So if you kind of look closely, there's a whole there's
yeah,
a whole spectrum of what's going on with me. Get a little fatter, I lose my tan because I'm always working in the fucking workshop.
Speaking of which, for anybody that watches the video, like you're in your office right now, and there's like windows out into your actual garage. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So the last couple of times that I spoke to you guys, I was, getting things moving. I was working out of my home garage.
Hmm.
Uh, February last year, myself and there's that guy that's working behind me, Jameson, from Timeless Auto Trim. He's the upholsterer that does all my seats and stuff. We kind of jumped in and moved into an office together on the Gold Coast, and yeah, I mean, things have been getting progressively busier and busier. And I guess part of the move was to give myself like a little bit more legitimacy. So I'm about 2% legitimate now rather than like -4. So that's been a good move.
Yeah, I mean, at first when you called, I thought like that those were like computer monitors behind you, and that you had a video of some like garage scene playing in the background.
No, there's no smoke and mirrors here, man. This
We're
is
just waiting for
all,
like somebody to catch on fire in the background, and so for like the rest of this time, we're just having this interview while like Jameson is trying to put himself out.
I had to promise the boys a carton of beer if they didn't put any like dick signs up or anything during the interview. So
Yeah, that's
they did
fair.
it for the fans.
Um, so one of the guys in that listens to the show is curious what the first motorcycle you ever built was.
Uh, my first bike was a 1981 GS 550. I still got it now.
Yeah.
That was my like first road build. The first kind of bike that I ever really fucked with was it was like an XR70
Mm-hmm.
when I was a kid. My dad bought it for my sister, but she didn't really like it. And all my buddies at that time, they were starting to get those like pit bikes, like the Thumpstar bikes. They're like little mini motocross bikes that people race around.
Yeah.
So I bought a bunch of parts and I kind of like bigger wheels, higher suspension, and like a performance pipe and stuff that I did on this XR70. It was still a hunk of shit, but that was probably the first bike I did like front end swaps and all that on. But you can see it on the website actually, my GS 550. That was like the thing. I
Mm-hmm.
built before purpose built moto was even a thing, and that was the catalyst for a lot of this to all happen. So
Yeah.
thankful.
One thing we kind of talked about at before the show, Scott from one of our listeners, Scott is curious if you know about the $1 million bogan, who's some wealthy Australian real estate tycoon who's trying to rent a Harley and ride it from Mumbai to Mount Everest.
What the fuck? Just as people start to think Australians are actually real people and that we're not some fucking fairyland down on the other side of the world, something like that happens. Great. $1 million bogan. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah, I'm curious like where he's got where this name comes from. Like I don't know. I'm gonna have to look it up. Like why
Yeah,
he's called that.
I don't know.
He was also curious about like the cafe racer like scene down there. Like um here in the States it's kind of like peak cafe racer popularity was a while ago, a few years ago, and then it's been kind of waning since. Like he was curious like if you guys have seen the same thing or if like that style of motorcycle is still really popular, just kind of like what it's like out there.
I don't really know how divisive it is over there, but I don't think it's as segregated here. Like it's not, a bunch of guys with slick haircuts and nose rings riding, pre-84 cafe races.
Yeah.
It's just like a mixed bag, and motorcycles are motorcycles. At least that's the way that I feel.
Yeah.
Um, and even during the handcrafted film, there's a couple of cafe racer guys, but most of them, including myself, don't discriminate that much. There's certainly a genre of bike that I lean towards for myself, or that I have been building more of, but I wouldn't say no to a chopper or anything like that, because I feel like everything has its place. So I think the attitude down here, and I hope that I can speak for people other than myself, is that it doesn't really matter what you're riding. If you have a bike that can do the miles and you're willing to sit on something like a cafe racer for 6 hours and go for a ride with a bunch of your mates that are on Harleys, then do what you like.
Yeah. I know there's there's a couple of clubs here in the United States that you have to have a motorcycle that's like made before a certain year. Um, that sort of thing. Like
Yeah,
there's a group that like limits it to British bikes before a certain year. There's another group that just anything that's old enough. Um,
Yeah, we have that. There are definitely clubs like that around. There's a club that I go and I help them out with a show locally. They're like the Vintage Motorcycle Club, and you got to be before. I think it's pre 1984.
okay.
Is their cutoff. But again, that's like a mixed bag, and I go for rides with them on whatever I like. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, there are certain clubs and stuff around Australia, like cafe racer only clubs, and that can be quite strict. But I don't really, that's just not how I deal with motorcycles. To me, a bike is a bike, and if it's got two wheels and you can get on it and ride somewhere, it's good enough.
All right.
Except for sport bikes. Fuck
Except for
those guys.
sport bikes.
No, I'm just kidding. But seriously.
It's like I'm just kidding. Not kidding. Not kidding. So really quick, I noticed something while you're talking in the back of your workshop. You've got like a little box with a helmet in it, and then it looks like some kind of like modular shelving system. What is going on up there?
So the guys that had our workshop before us were like domestic architects,
Hmm.
and they had a bunch of CNC machinery and routers and stuff in here. So they did this fit out where you can like clip things all over the walls in our office and move them, and everything fits everywhere, kind of thing. It's like an
Uh-huh.
IKEA office
Yeah, that's
almost.
kind of what I was getting a vibe of, like
Kind
back
of
there.
Yeah, so we kept the fit out kind of how it was, because it's kind of weird and cool, which suits us.
Yeah, definitely weird.
Yeah, fuck it.
So let's see. Before I forget, like where can people find the video or the movie Handcrafted?
So handcrafted, was just released for free on YouTube. It's on my YouTube channel, Purpose Built Moto. If you search handcrafted, it'll be the first thing that pops up, either that or the trailer for it. We were going to kind of try to get some distribution through different channels, but I think it was important that keeping with the with handcrafted, we really wanted to do good by the community. So that was the whole thing. Like, we went out and interviewed all these builders on our dollar. We kind of funded the whole thing, and the boys put all the work in from Electric Bubble, doing the filmmaking and stuff like that for nothing, just so we could have something to show, in terms of what we could produce for very little. And when we were starting to kind of think about releasing it, it was more, we want to just get eyes on it. We want people to see it. We want them to call their buddies on a Friday. Everyone rides to their mate's house, sit around, have a few beers and watch this movie, and either get, pumped up to go for a ride or inspired to pull their bike down or maybe build it a little better or whatever, just kind of let be known that there is that kind of thing going on in Australia, because everything that's out there at the moment is US or Europe, and I feel like we're pretty underrepresented, which I've talked about a little bit during the release of the film. And there's a lot of talent down here. The guys that we interviewed are some of my favorite bike builders ever, so to be able to put them on a little bit of a platform and get some people to know who they are and recognize what they're doing, that's kind of what we wanted. And to release it for free was kind of conducive to what we wanted to achieve. So there it is. You can enjoy it for nothing.
All right. Yeah. So YouTube, look for Handcrafted, or go to Purpose Built Moto's YouTube channel and find it there.
Yeah, you can see a bunch of other dumb shit that I put up there too.
Yeah, I'll have to go check that out. What are you still you're still making bikes? You're still selling bike bits?
Still selling bike bits. I've been able to kind of, now that the stuff is starting to sell a little bit better, I've been able to develop some new products. I have a bigger headlight range now. I've released brake lights. My indicators have been upgraded, so they're a 3-in-1 brake light, turn light, running light, the red and amber built in. So that stuff is still progressing. I have gotten so busy with customer builds and bike projects that it's difficult for me to balance, because while I enjoy doing the parts and going through the manufacturing process and all that kind of stuff, I really fucking like building bikes. So given a choice, that's what I'm going to be doing. But I kind of find myself having to, pull myself away from the bench or the machinery for a little while and sit on my laptop and do that other stuff as well. So things are going good. Right now, well, in my office, my little office ornament right now, let me just flip you around. The Tesla 900 that I just finished up. So that video will be going on my YouTube in the next couple of weeks. I've started doing each bike that I build, I kind of give people a run through on how it went down and what we've done. But out in the shop right now, there's the CB 900 bowl door, the early 80s.
No.
900, 4-cylinder 900. It's just this big beast of a motor. The motor was pulled out of a wrecked bike, and the guy wanted to make a chopper from it. So he got it put in this frame, and it was a real mess. So after 6 years or something, he brought it down to me. So I've been working on a CB 900 chopper.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, I got it up on the bench, and the seat and stuff is all sorted out. I just built the sissy bar and mounted the fenders, and we're starting to work through the kind of performance upgrades on the motor. So got a set of CR race carbs for it. I think they came out of San Diego, actually. There's a guy over there that builds carburetor banks. The exhaust has been done on it, and we're just kind of getting everything set up, ready for tearing it down. and to send it out for paint and to make things shiny, which is a lot of fun. I've never built a chopper before, so it's been a good challenge and something a little bit different. I got a CX500 that I just rolled up onto the bench this morning. I'm going to start tinkering around with that.
Those are
And
fun.
yeah, a Ducati GT1000, you know, the sport classics that they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, they bought them out for a couple of years. So a guy that had been on my build wait list for a long time, I think he was waiting like 2 years to get his bike in the garage. Because, well, firstly because I was really busy, but on the side of that, I had a bit of an aversion to doing his project because I know he wanted it something like way out there and really special. And, you know, I had to build that skill set because no one taught me how to do anything. So I've been slowly practicing and working towards to doing this GT1000. And I finally pulled the trigger on it a few weeks ago. So I've since I swapped the swing arm out on it. So now the Sport Classic is running a single side swing arm with a monoshock conversion.
Okay.
Uh, the single side swing arm spoked wheel from Jonich in Germany. And I've finished the kind of subframe with the built-in tail light. And then I've just finished fabrication on the gas tank. So I built the gas tank from scratch, which is the first time I've ever kind of taken a dive into something like that. So I kind of taught myself how to weld aluminium and fabricated this pretty gnarly looking gas tank for it. So next steps are to kind of get the covers on the tank and build the kind of cafe racer tail hump sort of thing. And then I got to pull the bike down and flip the frame so I can finish welding all the modifications that we've done.
Awesome. That sounds like you're very busy.
Yeah, well, I like to be that way. I thrive under pressure, I guess.
Yeah. So let's see. Where can people find out more about what you're doing?
So I have a website that I work pretty hard on. All my products are in store there, as well as updates on the bike builds and stuff, which is purposebuiltmoto.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then my Instagram, I guess, is where I put out most of my stuff. If I'm tinkering away with one thing or the other on any given day, that's where you can find out what I'm doing. Obviously, my YouTube channel has been growing quite a bit lately because I've been putting out a bunch of videos. So
yeah,
all the bikes that roll out of the shop here, I do like a little 3 or 4 minute video on a run through on the modification, any of the kind of hard bits that we hit or whatever, and the kind of overall styling that we take with the bike. So I feel like people are often at a loss when they want to start a project. So I often get emails, if I finish an XSR 900, they'll email me like, where do I start? What do I do? So these videos are kind of my way of saving myself sending 100 emails and just kind of sending them there so they can see it all for themselves and take a bit of look at what goes on in here.
Yeah. I like it. I actually shot a video the other day of sort of, so my Bonneville has had an air leak had an air leak in the tire. And I was, I'd sprayed the front tire down with soapy water to see where it was making bubbles and all that sort of stuff. And I shot a video of like finding the leak and fixing the leak and all that sort of stuff. And then I realized when I was doing it all by myself in the garage. And when I got it all loaded on my computer, I realized I'm out of frame like 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Like you can see like my head is out of the frame most of the time in the video.
That's all right. Were you wearing an interesting t-shirt?
Is a shirt my friend Amanda made that says Cafe Racer Podcast on it.
Perfect. That's all you want. It's branding, right?
Yeah, it's got a line drawing of a Bonneville, and then it says Cafe Racer Podcast underneath it. So,
yeah, a lot of the time, like you watch those videos and stuff on YouTube, and I mean, people are doing it in their garage and they're filming, building their own bikes or whatever. The production quality is relatively low, but because I know these electric bubble guys that I film with, they don't do it for free, but I get them in and we shoot these videos. Like it's all very nicely done and well lit and all that kind of stuff. So I'm up in the game on the production level of the YouTube. I hope it's not just some guy with a fucking iPhone in the garage. It's a little bit nicer than that. Although, you know, one of my favorite YouTube channels is that Ichiban Moto. Do you know that guy?
No.
Oh, dude, he's so funny. So he's one of those guys. There's like a sea of people on YouTube that have tutorials on what to do that really have no fucking idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he kind of takes that and does the most ridiculous wrong tutorials. Oh, you know, and it's all done very serious, so you don't know whether it's fake or not. But
Uh-huh.
one of my favorite ones is he's like, all right, I'm going to show you how to fit a cafe racer tail hoop. And he makes it out of fucking hose and then paints it black and sticky tapes it on the bike. It's so, but he's all done like very, very seriously. It's hilarious. You got to watch it.
I just looked him up so on my phone so I can watch it later. Yeah, I love stuff like this. There's another guy that does all these like electrical engineering related videos. Like I work in as an electronics tech for a living. Um, and
Yeah, me
this
too.
guy does a bunch of I'll have to find his channel or something. He does a bunch of electronics tech videos, but in every single one of them, he does something that causes some like giant friggin' spark and shocks the crap out of himself.
He's an Indian guy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen the video where he makes an electric guitar. That's the best.
Yeah. He like electrifies the strings and
Yeah,
like
you just plug it into the wall and it's ready to go.
yeah, and he plugs
Yeah,
it just like bah!
yeah,
Yeah. There's another video he has that's on like current versus amperage. How like people say like it's the current that kills you or current versus volts. Sorry, like yeah. Like it's the current that'll kill you, not the volts. And he like takes some piece of equipment and puts like a very, very low current, but like 50,000 volts or something, and then shocks the shit out of himself. And then he takes like a really, really low voltage and super high current and then shocks the shit out of himself again.
damn.
And it's like
He's got to know what he's doing, right? Otherwise, he'd be dead.
yeah, yeah. It,
Yeah, that's a weird one.
yeah, there's been a bunch of videos I've been seeing lately though, of like this guy that I'll have to look his name up real quick. It's one of those situations where you click on like one video on YouTube and then suddenly a million things keep popping up. Um, the channel's called Project Farm, and basically he like the one I saw, the first video I saw was comparing every kind of penetrating oil that he could find at like the parts store. Um, so you've got like all of the different like oils for busting a rusty nut loose.
Yeah.
So he came up with a test
A
method.
rusty nut.
What's that?
So there's nothing quite like busting a rusty nut.
Yeah, seriously. And so he tests them all, like head to head, like he has like three different bolts that he's intentionally like oxidized these nuts onto, and then he, drops a little dropper of the penetrating oil on each one and does this whole big long video and sees how far they actually penetrate through the threads, all this sort of stuff. And it was like, man, this guy really went crazy. But now I see his like all the videos on his channel pop up in my little YouTube feed all the time.
Yeah.
And he's like blowing up motors just to see what happens, like running motors without oil for as long as he can, like a lawnmower engine without oil.
Oh man, that'd be so popular, wouldn't it? People love seeing shit blow up.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
I like it too.
Yeah, me too. It's fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there. It's like I started putting content up on YouTube,
Yeah.
because I had this film coming out, so I started doing a bit of stuff, and it's like addictive. I mean, I spend a lot of time watching shit on YouTube now, just for the entertainment factor. But in the mix of that, there's just like so much bullshit. You know what I mean? You're watching
Oh yeah.
stuff, and you're like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
Yeah, there's just a lot of like it's like if I tried to go do a video on how to weld right now. I've never welded in my life, but I have an idea that you like heat some stuff up and you melt some stuff onto the other stuff. So
Well, the trick is that you just got to stay one YouTube tutorial ahead of your audience, and then you can do what you like. this is an insider tip that, yeah, but I guess you got to take the good with the bad when you have that free flow of information.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to tell the audience about before we wrap up?
I think that's it, man. Thanks for listening, anyone who's
Yeah.
listened. And I hope you guys jump on and watch that handcrafted video. We put a lot of work into it, so go enjoy it,
Yeah.
please.
So go to YouTube, search for Handcrafted, follow Purpose Built Moto on Instagram, and go to Purpose Built Moto to buy really cool bits for your bike, like an LED
Oh,
headlight conversion or really heinously bright turn signals. Or,
oh yeah, you got those, huh?
yeah, I have some of those.
Yeah.
I need to get another set actually because they, um, I wanted to put them on the Bonneville, but they don't. Like I would only have two, so I need to like pony up some cash and buy a second set.
Yeah, I'll give you a plus 30% discount.
All right, I'll I'll have to I'll hit you up afterwards.
Yeah, 130% just
Yeah,
for you.
yeah, yeah. That's the friends and family price is an extra 30% added on to the
Yeah.
price
Friends and
because
family. They get
yeah,
charged extra for all the bullshit they put me through.
exactly. It's like I'm not giving you a discount. I'm charging you more because you suck, and I have
Yeah.
to see you all the time or talk
No,
to
I
you.
think I'll look after you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'd like to thank all the Patreon supporters for our show, and you can find us in all the regular places. Just look for Cafe Racer Podcast. We'll be doing some more fun stuff with Steve, and he did some interviews last week that we're going to still put up. So there's plenty more content to come in the near future, plus a fun, exciting sponsor announcement soon. Without further ado, get out and ride.